Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to showcase Wild Alaskan's story in building their support organization and their journey with QA and workforce management to elevate customer experiences while empowering their team with both Klaus and Assembled. My name is Valerie, and I am on the product marketing team here at Assembled. We are a workforce management platform built to help modern support teams prepare for anything. And I first started in customer success, where I had the pleasure of working with Meg at Wild Alaskan on implementation. I will hand it over to Meg to introduce herself.
Thanks, Valerie. Yes, hey everyone, I'm Meg Chrisman. I'm the Director of Member Experience at Wild Alaskan Company, and I've been with Wild Alaskan for about 3 years, and I'm excited to share with you all today more about our journey. And I'll pass over to Riley as well for an introduction.
Thanks, Meg. Hey guys, I'm Riley. I am from Klaus. I'm the educational content specialist there. I've been at Klaus for just over 1 year. And in my previous job, I was the training and quality manager for Pipedrive CRM platform. So doing the training and quality for the support department there. I'm really fascinated with how companies operate their support teams. So the logistics behind it, the positions involved, as well as how companies kind of perceive their support department. So how they sort of sit on the organization chart within the company is really interesting. So really looking forward to talking to you, Meg and Valerie, today, hearing about Wild Alaskan Support Department.
Fantastic. Thanks, Riley and Meg. To give a bit of an overview of what we'll be going over today, we'll first be diving into a bit of an overview of each of our platforms and Meg's journey, starting with when she first joined Wild Alaskan, where she'll go over the QA and workforce management evaluation process. We'll again then go through our implementation journeys, some wins since implementing QA and workforce management, as well as wrap up with a discussion on agent empowerment opportunities. Also, just a bit of logistics before we dive in. If you have any questions for the team, it would be great if you could press the Q&A button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And lastly, a recording will be emailed promptly right after today's presentation. All right. I'll hand it off to you, Meg, to give an overview of Wild Alaskan.
Thanks. Yeah, so Wild Alaskan Company, we are a membership service. We bring wild-caught seafood to doorsteps across the country. We were founded by Aaron Kallenberg. He's a third-generation commercial fisherman from Homer, Alaska, and is very passionate about both the seafood that we eat and the systems that bring it to us. So we've been on this mission for a while now, and we are excited to share more about the journey. And then, Wild Alaskan Company, you can find us everywhere, wildalaskancompany.com, and on all of our socials, as well as in some emails following up on this.
Fantastic. To give a brief overview on Assembled, we are a workforce management platform designed to help companies maintain exceptional customer experiences no matter what lies ahead. And leading brands use Assembled in a number of ways. Our workforce management and vendor management capabilities help make optimal staffing decisions, gain visibility into performance and productivity, and also unlock new ways to serve customer needs that evolve rapidly. We work with amazing partners like Zoom, Etsy, Casper, and TaskRabbit, to name a few. And companies that work with us on average see SLA improvements of at least 25% without the need to hire additional agents, adherence gains, as well as substantial time saved on scheduling. I'll hand it off to Riley to give an overview on Klaus.
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. So Klaus is a quality management software. So we not only help you measure your support quality, but also understand why it goes up or down over time. Klaus allows you to regularly and easily review the conversations of your support team. So that gives them recurring feedback, which is crucial for their development and knowledge gains over time on their support journey. The real beauty of Klaus is that you do not need to change what your perspective of what quality means is for your company. So it's fully customizable with its scorecards, meaning that you can review your team's conversations based on your own quality criteria. Further to that, Klaus is not just a review platform, it's also got coaching and learning features built in, as well as our own CSAT survey. So you can track your CSAT scores alongside your quality metrics as well. So everything you need to monitor and improve your support quality.
Fantastic. All right, Riley, I will hand over the reins to you to
Sure.
start off with next journey.
Absolutely. So Meg, going to throw a few questions at you here. Really want to kind of peel back the layers to start with. This is a question I love to ask support departments, is really paint a picture of what Wild Alaskan sort of support department looks like when you joined. So the structure, the positions, and then how has that kind of evolved since you took over or entered the role? What was kind of your first, let's say, order of business of getting your team structure in place?
Yeah, so when I joined Wild Alaskan Company in 2019, we had a team of 6 fully remote specialists, 1 team lead and 5 specialists. Um, and each teammate had, in some ways, on our support team, a more focused role of what they were interested in, and they wore some different hats and had their own niches. And at that time, at that size, it was great. Communication was pretty simple with a smaller group of people. When I first joined as the team manager, it was important for me to really listen to what was going on, understand how the existing team felt about all of the systems, and then think about how we were going to grow. So, early on, it was clear that everybody wearing their own hat is great in a certain size, but it is not something that scales very well. So we needed to have opportunities to create systems, to have structure, and to enable other new folks as they join to be able to be involved in all of the different things that our team was working on. Uh, and then listening to feedback, of course, enables you to figure out what's working, what's not working, and then you can quickly move on from those things that the team themselves don't have identified as not working super well, and get mobilized on what you think is going to work well. And yeah, about 7 months into my time at Wild Alaskan is when the pandemic hit, and that did change things. A lot of our plans that we had made were quickly flipped on their head and changed our growth trajectory for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that kind of threw a spanner in the works for a lot of companies, I would say, particularly support teams, I think, possibly hit the most, really. Normally big on-site support teams, working as a team together over each other's shoulders and whatnot. So a big change for support teams globally with the move to working from home. So that is definitely a challenge these days. So with your support team, we've got to understand a little bit of your structure, but what about your actual philosophy behind support? What's your kind of motto or mantra when it comes to Wild Alaskan Company support?
For us, it starts with our name. So, Wild Alaskan, we are the member experience team. And that means that when people sign up to join our service, they're joining our community. So, they're members in it with us. It's not a customer service team. We're here to support people and be with them literally in their homes while they're eating dinner as they're getting ready to feed themselves and their families. So, from the start, that's just so central to us, is that we are real people. we're having conversations with real people, and we want to grow with them over time. We are personal fishmongers that you interact with online instead of in person. And we use tools that may only be available in a digital space to create some of these connections and to improve experiences for people. That's really big for us. We also want to make sure, as a support team, that we're always what we like to say, leading with the facts. Being in the seafood industry in general, there in our industry there is a lot of misinformation out there, and particularly in this country, many Americans are told they should be eating more fish, but they're also told that you cannot trust anybody that you buy it from. So our team really needs to kind of provide that human voice to open up conversations and help people feel that sense of trust with what they're signing up for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really really nice way to put it. Instead of support team in sense, but member experience team. I really like that because you're really about creating the experiences with your customers and building those relationships, which is, as we know, very very important nowadays when it comes to customer support and sort of any sort of brand loyalty as well. So that's really cool to hear. Um, w- when it comes to improving your sort of member experience. I'm guessing that's where Klaus kind of came along, the need for it, right? Like what was the inflection point for when you kind of needed to start monitoring your support quality or member experience quality? What was sort of the breaking point for you there, where you needed to look into a tool to help you with this?
So I'm sure anybody who in this webinar who is a support manager knows you want to have eyes everywhere, and you'll hear about conversations, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have the full scope of them. For us, when we were a smaller team size, our single team lead was capable of spending 20% of her time every single day just in quality assurance, just reading conversations, passing notes back to people. And then I could get feedback from our lead on how things are going, and then talk to the individual specialists on our team. By the time that we have 30 specialists, we have over 20,000 conversations a month. One to two people aren't really capable of reviewing that on their own. And at the time, our system was also leaving notes on the conversations themselves in our support platform, which is Intercom, which means that you might have no idea how to even get back to that conversation when you're looking for it later. And and it's hard to have some sort of shared visibility into those things. So
Mm.
again, hitting some of those tipping points of just our getting again into that 30 specialist mark, getting into 20,000 conversations, the rapid growth was really big for us. And for yeah, realizing that we needed both. We needed a class, we needed looking for a QA tool, as well as we had some different tipping points for workforce management, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But that was definitely the place for us. It just got a little out of hand, as I'm sure most folks
Yeah.
here have experienced, trying to keep track of all of the great notes and the great conversations that people are having that you do want to
Mm.
share as examples with the rest of your team.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard a lot of people using spreadsheets to kind of manually do their QA before moving to a tool like Klaus, but it's probably the first time I've heard of using Intercom itself in the notes section, which is a very creative way to do it. But as you said, probably a bit of a nightmare for actually finding that data and getting some clearer insights from it. So yeah, it sounds like the pretty natural time to decide to jump onto a tool, especially when you have, as you said, 30 agents and thousands of conversations a month. It becomes a bit of a necessity. Um, when it came to choosing a tool for QA, like there is, a few options out there and whatnot. What was it about Klaus that kind of set it apart, or why? What made you go for Klaus in the end?
Yeah, so we did look at a few different tools. Some things that we knew going into QA. We actually knew early on that we wanted to incorporate peer QA as part of our quality assurance. So not just that leads and managers are going to read conversations and review them, but also that everybody on the team is a participant in this, and every single specialist is their input is welcome on how well we're doing. and we want to hear what they think, because that also helps us to understand how well we think we're doing when we get the feedback back from our team. So looking at Klaus, definitely having the ability to run calibration was something that was important to us. Again, we're looking at a lot of different conversations, and we have a few different criteria. How do we know that we're judging things the same way? That was a pretty big thing. The ability to do randomized reviews, to have a fully customizable scoring system, which is something I encourage everybody here to be doing and think about, is we all might want to score our conversations differently. There may be different things that you're looking out for, based on your voice and what your product is and the things that are important to your team. So the customizable scoring system, and then for us also the ability to review conversations based on tags. So the integration with our support platform was pretty big for us. And then lastly, to note, we also could tell with Klaus that there was a lot of personality happening behind the scenes, and it's clear that there's some dedication from your team to supporting support teams and to providing tools and to get us to think critically about it. And that was really awesome.
Oh, that's really obviously very nice to hear from our end. Like Klaus is a support tool built by support people, so it's really nice to hear that feedback as well, because it's what we aim for. Yeah, that's really cool. I wanted to actually circle back a little bit. It's piqued my interest again now, hearing that you reached that 30 support members. How have you structured those 30 support members? Are they all like the same specialists? Is there any division between the people there, and how many per manager sort of thing in a team? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it has changed over time. As I mentioned, we grew quite quickly, and that has in some ways allowed us to kind of get into this place and then figure out what exactly what we need. So we have a number of member experience specialists. We do have 3 team leads. We have a quality assurance lead as well. So that is one role specifically dedicated to doing quality review, although they work closely and collaborate with the other leads and managers in that, and they also help us to run our peer QA process. We do have senior specialists, so that's another role that we have within the organization, and our team managers and our service operations manager and myself. So yeah, we've got quite a division now. We're looking at essentially around that 10 10 to 1 ratio to specialist to lead to manager. That's currently where we are now. That we've done a lot of different configurations of that in the last few years, and it'll continue to grow. We also look at growth as not a linear thing. We want to think about, being intelligent about how we hire, and
Hmm.
thinking about what we need to maintain our own quality standard.
Yeah, nice. No, that's cool. It's always just interesting how the structure is in place with different support teams. I feel in general, there's a lot of broad similarities between support departments around the world, but it's also everyone has their own sort of unique kind of problem or structure in place because of some quirky internal feature. It's always really cool to hear the structure that is put in place.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Finally, on Klaus,
and it.
Yeah.
So worth noting, yeah, everybody does is fully internal to our company. So our nationwide support team is all, everyone is a direct employee of Wild Alaskan, and that's also been important to keep everything in house as we've grown.
Nice. Yeah. It's really cool. Growing a team like that internally. It's also seeing where a lot of the support team members end up in the future as well. It's normally quite a cool thing to look at with hyper growth companies in particular. It's really cool. Is there anything else that stood out, or anything else worth mentioning about Klaus's sort of implementation on your end that you'd like to share?
Yeah, the tactical implementation of Klaus was actually pretty simple for us. We definitely, we were able to get all of our systems connected pretty quickly. For us, it was figuring out the scoring system, what that was going to look like, how it was going to work. We've actually gone through 2 different ones. So after a year doing it one way, we ended up switching it. And one of the things that has been interesting for us that we're still trying out this past year has been we actually changed our scoring system, such that a 50% rating essentially. And in Klaus, it's fun because you can give thumbs up or smiley faces. So it's not like you're just giving somebody a hard number score. But in our world, a 50% actually translates to a really good score. That's like that's our baseline. This is a good place to be. And we found that a lot of our specialists, it can be hard to give constructive feedback or to give negative feedback. And it's also really alluring to like think someone's doing a great job and want to give them a really good score. And then our thinking was, if we start at 50% as a good score, let's see how many of our conversations are actually getting one next level above that. And what does
Mm-hmm.
2 levels above that look like? What if you found something that you thought was completely amazing and you didn't expect anyone on the team to do it this way? We actually want to hear about those conversations and we want to share those things. We want to understand what's happening there, because that's, you can certainly learn from your mistakes, but it also is really important to learn from the things that are going really well. So that's been another big piece for us in Klaus, is really spending some time to be thinking about that that scoring system,
Mm-hmm.
and then using the review process itself just to uncover gaps in our process. So less about individual people doing something wrong, but like what are we seeing across the board? And that's been another part of that Klaus implementation that's been helpful to us.
Nice. Yeah. No, very cool to hear as well. The scoring system's quite clever, like to surface these like exceptional conversations to lower the bar, for the rest of them to see them come through is a cool way to do it. And as we like to kind of say at Klaus as well, there's no bad conversations. There's just a lot of moments to learn from. So it's a really cool implementation by the sounds of it. That's really valuable insights into Klaus's side of things. I'd like to pass it to Valerie now. I think we can hear about Assembled and the use at Wild Alaskan.
Absolutely. Thanks, Riley. Yeah, would love to shift gears, Meg, and chat a little bit more on the workforce management side. Could you walk us through some of the tipping points and kind of paint a picture of what was happening at Wild Alaskan that really was the impetus of, yes, workforce management is something we need to seek out?
So yeah, we actually, so just to give context to the group watching, we did bring in Klaus and quality assurance first, and then we later brought in workforce management. So in our world, we made do with the schedule that we had and the tools available to us for a while. Again, it's that having this 30 plus agent range, being in the 3 different channels. So we look at email, live chat, and phones as separate things. And then understanding that we also look at our team as we want them to have some autonomy over their day and their schedule. So we realized that we needed the ability to see our schedule as managers more clearly, and so that we didn't have as our favorite like 17 different spreadsheets around all over the place indicating where people should be at different times. And B, we needed the team to be able to have a good sense of understanding where both themselves and their teammates were at any given moment, because life happens, or you may need to step away, or maybe you need to have a quick meeting with somebody to go over something. And it can be really nerve-wracking to just set yourself to away if you're on live chat. I mean, that's something you wouldn't typically think to be able to do, right? Maybe you're letting people down. That's not where you're scheduled to be. But having the ability to see, well, what's going to be the impact if I am away, or how many people are there? So just knowing that we needed everybody on the team to have more visibility into the schedule was pretty big for us in terms of that tipping point for scheduling and workforce management.
Totally. That theme that you emphasize, Meg, around visibility, I think is so crucial, and just really having, everything in one place, but also allowing, your managers to make informed decisions around staffing very intentionally, but also, your specialists as well to know, where folks are placed, where, breaks or time off can most easily, be done to not only, make sure that it accommodates when life happens, but also more broadly, what does it mean for the business as a whole? Out of curiosity, at around this time, how exactly were agents seeing their schedules? Would they just open up a spreadsheet as well and take a look at their day to day? Would love a little bit of color into that piece.
Yeah, it's funny. It's even trying to remember different times. So, really it was in the early days, it's just you're at work, you're live, like you're going for it. As soon as our chat channel turns on, then you're in it and you're experiencing that. And then we had the schedule that we actually had was just for our phone support. So we, previously only scheduled in phones and lunch breaks. So if you weren't scheduled to be taking lunch and if you weren't scheduled to be on the phone, then you were roughly supposed to be in the live channels, in email and chat. And there was this general assumption that your one-on-ones, your other meetings, your time that you're taking to work on a project, you would just need to figure out how to do that without really disrupting things too much. So so it wasn't super clear. It was just, you're here, you're expected to be in it. And then if you put out a message in Slack and see how it feels, okay, I'm going to step away for a little bit. And there'd be a lot of talking amongst each other in the channel.
Totally. No, super helpful painting that picture there. And, having Slack to kind of like manage some of those like within the day schedule changes, which I can imagine would be tough in terms of having that visibility of seeing, okay, like what are my other fellow specialists, also doing and what are they scheduled on? Would love for you, Meg, to walk through, now that this decision has made around like seeking out workforce management. There are a number of tools out there. Curious, what was your, top criteria in really deciding a workforce management tool that would best fit the needs of your team?
It was kind of nice thinking about this in preparation for this webinar because it did bring me back to the, all the documents we created when we were looking at different platforms. I think with Assembled, some of the things that stood out to us, the scheduling per person, per different work activity, per hour of the day was really, really a great feature. And the integration with Google Calendar was something that stood out to us as well, since we all tend to live our lives there. And that's where a lot of the company meetings and things like that are going to be put. It's in that Google Calendar, not in someone's individual schedule. So that was pretty big for us. As well as the forecasting for headcount and SLA achievement. So Assembled has some tools of, understanding what your volume is, what is, you can get these forecasts to understand if you want to be responding in a certain amount of time, how many people do you think you're going to need? Or if these are your business hours, kind of plugging that in. So there's also some like volume coverage forecasting scenario testing that you can do. And then there's team metrics. So, understanding agent productivity and adherence, those are things you can track. It's not always about being in a big brother way as it is in about understanding human behavior way. Are people in adherence all the time, right? It's unrealistic to expect that everybody's going to be exactly where they are at the exact time that you say they should be there. So those things were all things we were looking at when bringing in a tool like Assembled. And similar to Klaus, like it's definitely, we can tell Assembled is a support tool as well, driven by support professionals who really understand that support operations can be crucial to the success of your company and to your team. It's not just something that you think about on the side as scheduling your team. It's no, this is how we accomplish our goals together, and this is how our days can run smoothly.
I actually, I wanted to jump in there if that's all right. I've just got a quick question regarding Assembled and the forecasting functionality of this. This seems fascinating. So Assembled plugs directly to your support platforms and then is able to calculate the sort of the staffing needs?
Yes, Riley, great question. We integrate directly with your contact platforms, and we will then generate forecasts across channels, queues, allowing you to choose, the model that best fits your business. And from there, generate headcount requirements. So you then have a very nice granular overview, but also macro overview of how you're staffed, if you're over or understaffing. And for other teams that might have forecasting teams built out, you can also upload forecasts directly in our system.
That's amazing. I just remember in a previous job, there would be week-long exercises to come up with the forecast deep in spreadsheets. So that just sounds amazing. Really cool. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
Love that, Riley. Yes. But yeah, Meg, just to add on to all that you said, which is really nice to hear, one of our big pillars is making sure that we are building a workforce management and support ops platform for the entire team. Like, it's not simply, allowing your workforce managers, support managers to have the visibility that they need, to succeed, but also, really importantly, empowering your specialists, your agents, and allowing them to have a world-class experience, and not only a tool that's easy for them to use, but also more broadly integrating with the tools that they use on the day-to-day. So like the Google Calendar integration, Slack integrations, all of that's really key for us, and really thinking about, okay, how can we make sure that folks have visibility in their day-to-day as well. And also, similar to Klaus, we are built by support, for support, and we really want to make sure that even throughout the journey of the buying process, but also implementation and success, you're working with someone who really understands, what it's like to be in your shoes, and the day-to-day pains as well. So definitely a really important, tenet for us. Shifting gears a little bit, now that you have, decided that Assembled is the solution for you, would love for you to walk us through the implementation process with us.
Yeah, so implementing Assembled was definitely took a little bit of work, because we worked with your all's engineering team, actually, since our phone support system is actually not currently integrated with Assembled. Though we did work with some engineers over at Assembled to make sure that we could get our phone support uh, numbers and get that channel up and running via some tag integrations that we did with our other support tools. So that was great. We spent a bit of time going back and forth, and were able to get that worked out. We also were able to, just clearly define our 3 different channels of email, chat, and phones, which email and phones are pretty big for us with our member base, as well as chat. So that was great. And then once we got that part figured out, so we could get the proper forecasting running, it was really about figuring out how we wanted to build our schedule. And I know one of our managers who was involved in the early implementation. I mean, she must have spent just a lot of hours just looking at how we staff and what we staff, and thinking about that, which was great though, because we had more visibility than we had previously. So yeah, we've kind of been able to work with that, and we've now probably in our, like, who knows, 30th version of the schedule. It's ever evolving, and we change it every few weeks. We don't really change anybody's personal days that they work, but we'll shift around various things that need coverage throughout the day, depending on the week, depending on who's in, who's out, and all the rest.
That is some awesome color, Meg, especially like around the piece of working with, our engineering product team to really make sure that metrics are going into the platform and forecasted definitionally in a way that aligns with, your needs. And just for the broader audience as well, we do integrate with a number of telephony platforms, but I think any platform might have some integrations that might be kind of like down the line on the roadmap that will happen. But in the interim, for us, it's important for our product team to, work with you and make sure that those metrics are aligned and really set you up for success. Also, Meg, would love to hear a little bit more actually about, your scheduling workflows. And it really seems like you all have this very like iterative approach in terms of like scheduling structures that might work better for the team, and modifying that, which is super awesome to hear. Just to add a little bit more in terms of that spreadsheets to workforce management platform transition, we actually have made these candles that have a hashtag burn your spreadsheets on here for customers that work with us and have finally, reached that milestone of getting rid of that spreadsheet. I think I knew someone who even printed theirs out and like physically burned it. You can do whatever you want as a celebratory milestone there, but just for folks in the audience, if, this is of interest, we definitely would love to mail you some. But yeah, Meg, would love to hear a little bit more about, the scheduling side and how you think about tweaking it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that candle. It's a classic one. Yeah, I mean, we have currently our schedule. I mean, like as I mentioned, we have one of our team managers now. He actually will build out the schedule, publish it, then probably get a number of Slack pings of questions about what, where, when, and how. One of the things we've done is we've really listened to a lot of feedback from the team. So I mentioned we did that. We do that in a lot of places, but particularly with the schedule. So just that idea that I mentioned before, if you're on you're on phones for 2 hours, you may have some things you need to wrap up before you can hop on live chat again or get to the next meeting. So we actually have done some things like we have 15-minute increments in Assemble. We can actually schedule someone for 15 minutes just between time to get things sorted, both before and after they head into one of the live channels. And each person's a little different. We've been trying to work out what are things that are universal for our team that we can set as like an expectation. What are some things that how can we work with individuals? Maybe if there's something that will work well for us and the rest of the team and them. So yeah, as I mentioned, we're scheduling people into their phone, their live chat, their email. We also do schedule teammates into peer review, into QA. So that's Assembled has allowed us to actually book that into our team's time, so we can know exactly how much time we're dedicating to it. But people can actually know they don't have to ask permission to do these things, right? They can jump into it. And we also use Assemble to schedule teammates into what we call program time, which is some work blocks that they can use to work on different projects or meet with teammates to make improvements to our department, to our service. So Assembled has allowed us, or using a scheduling tool in general has allowed us to really give people more autonomy and also give them more of that dedicated time to think and to have some brain space be available to them throughout their day, beyond the amount of time that it takes and the brain space supporting people.
That is fantastic to hear, Meg, especially around the piece of really taking in feedback from your team to design processes that really work for them as well as the business, and also making sure that folks have, that granular time set for project time or things really outside of, working in live channels to, really move the needle and also empower them on the day to day. Transitioning a bit to life after implementing Assembled, would love for you to go over some quick wins since implementation.
Yeah, so we've, a bunch of different wins. Some are outlined here in the slide. Some of the thought here around time savings is, like I mentioned before, there was a lot less clarity on where people were supposed to be, when and why. Now we have one person who's responsible for building the schedule, and then a bunch of people, all the managers and team leads can be able to like make adjustments, do things as things come up throughout the week. So we've been able to have more efficient use of our time around scheduling there. It's also really helped us to really think about our hiring process and make solid decisions about where we need to hire, as we do have people all across the country in different time zones, and thinking, where do we need the coverage, what spots are maybe more tight, and what should we be thinking about for our next hiring cohort. Would it be more advantageous to get some people in MST, or do we need some more people in the EST time zone? So that's been really helpful for us, as well as thinking about the total head count. We have improved reporting. So again, we can think about just how productive are we on these individual live channels instead of thinking of them as these kind of like static blocks. And you can see when people are actually working, and then kind of evaluate performance based on that, as opposed to maybe just looking at an entire week of productivity. And yeah, and then we kind of touched on, like, there is just benefit in that kind of personal autonomy and the ability to understand what your day looks like, and to see, like, if you need to schedule, like I mentioned, a meeting, that you can see what are the times available to me, and how can I make sure I'm not going to like put my other teammates in the lurch, right? If I jump off of phones or something to do it, you can actually look out for those areas where we have more staff and then make educated decisions on where to spend your time. So all those things have been great. Post getting on board with Assembled.
That's great to hear, Meg, especially around like making more intentional hiring decisions and really understanding like, which channels or areas might actually need folks, or actually can we even improve the performance of, certain folks, so then we don't actually need to hire, additional specialists, as well as the piece of empowered decision making. On Assembled, folks can have the options to expose schedules like across the team. So, agents or specialists can see exactly what their other peers are scheduled for, or you can also limit that as well, depending on what fits your organization best. But by being open by default, that definitely allows for more data-driven decision making and kind of understanding why, one decision around time off or kind of like adjusting an event can affect the business overall. Thanks so much for sharing all of this, Meg. Riley, before we shift gears to the agent empowerment piece, is there anything else you would like to cover on the Klaus side?
Yeah, actually, a similar question. Like once you implemented Klaus, what were kind of these benefits over time that you saw from the time of implementation onwards?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's like there's been, so many little things that add up to big things along the way. We currently, we have some different goals at different times of the year about the amount of conversations we want to review. What we're doing now, and with Klaus, it allowed us to do is, again, we can give people 30 minutes a week, and then we can be really quantitative of how much do we get accomplished in that? What are their goals for reviewing? Can we get to reviewing 5% of our conversations? Is that a good spread? And then we can actually use the tag integration, as I mentioned, to like even just dial in, like, let's just review our issue conversations for a while. Like, let's go to like maybe some of the hot places and review those explicitly, as opposed to, some of the conversations that maybe just were sharing recipes or a little bit lower, later touch conversations. We can kind of get into those high touch ones. It also allows us to really have a good sense and understand our quality, and how we're doing. So, because not only am I getting to judge that and my manager's getting to judge that, but the entire team is getting to judge that for themselves. And we do trust our teammates to know what's going on best, because they're the ones who are in there having these conversations. And they do really, really care about making things great for our members. That's one thing our team is a really strong suit. They're super empathetic and they really supportive. So we actually don't use CSAT. So some people may be wondering how we do have a sense of our customer satisfaction as a result of that. And there's been a number of decisions, and some of you here may not use CSAT or have feelings about it on your own. But doing this process again allows us to have our own standards. We've got our own scorecard. We know what we want to be putting out there, and how well are we doing that, and how well is it being received. So class allows us to really investigate those things in different ways. And then it allows for self-improvement. So in a fully remote setting, you can't just like lean your shoulder over and see how someone else does something. Peer QA enables our team to see how other people are having the same conversations and maybe pick up a thing or two, or maybe realize they've been doing something wrong. And they're like, oh, okay, great. Like I can figure that out without having to maybe have something bad happen first, right? And see that we all do make mistakes, and that is part of the process. Or you try your best and it still doesn't go well because maybe the person you're talking to is having a bad day, right? So we can evaluate those things and yeah, allow teammates to really be thinking about their own work and their own conversations, and to kind of lessen that fear of like, we know we can read everybody's conversations here, so let's do it. Instead of just like,
Yeah.
you can kind of see things shared inbox. Like if we do it more often, it can reduce some of that maybe nervousness you can feel, especially when you're just starting out somewhere that you are representing this whole company, and you may be afraid to say the wrong thing. Well, okay, so what? Like, if that happens, we can make it better next time, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
that's it honestly sounds like you're really getting the most out of your peer reviews. Like I heard you mention before that you add the peer reviews to the schedule on Assembled, which is like awesome to hear. Roughly how much time per week or per month or however frequently you do the peer reviews, how much time off on the schedule is dedicated for peer reviews?
yeah. So it's 30. Currently, we got 30 minutes per specialist per week, and then we have a full-time QA lead who's also doing reviews. And then our team leads and managers will do periodic rounds of QA where we'll actually, it's not about even the individual at all, but that there's not necessarily a time set on that. I'm not answering that question well, am I? But for the teammates, it's 30 minutes per week. And then there's upwards from there of the time we spend in there, depending on what our focus is at the moment.
Awesome. No, that's cool. Like it's like such a crucial part of peer reviews is ensuring that your team has the dedicated time to actually complete those peer reviews because yeah,
Right.
it's
And that,
such a crucial factor. Yeah.
yeah. And we didn't used to have it scheduled. It was sort of this, you're expected to do it, but then when do you do it? So,
Hmm.
having the time in there, again, they may not always get to it in that time that was booked. Maybe something comes up, but then they can kind of rebook it for the rest of the week. But yeah, we do. It is so important. It's crucial that if you are saying something's important to your team, that you make space for them to do it, and for it to be important. So you do have to back that up. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and with what you were talking about earlier as well, which is the visibility of things. So visibility of a schedule, visibility of others' conversations, especially in the remote environment we're in now, like how crucial that actually is to your own development, or as you said, seeing other people make mistakes too, or you're seeing something that you've done wrong for 6 months and only just picking up now. It's crucial to have that visibility, as it is kind of an empowering tool to provide your support agents, I would say. In a previous role, we actually opened up the schedule of our support engineers, so we made that available to our support staff, and that just from our support staff having visibility of when the support engineers were working, that just saved so much time and hassle and back and forth and delays in cases and whatnot. So, yeah, visibility is a very key road to empowerment, I would say, for your support team.
And speaking of empowerment, I know that we are approaching our last 10 minutes, so we would love to wrap up on that note and then open up the floor to questions from the audience. Would love to cover how we encourage professional development opportunities for agents, and why you should, and how you all think about that.
Yeah. So at Wild Alaskan Company and within our team, I mentioned a little bit briefly, but one thing that we look at within our own team is, as I mentioned, like they're the best informed to be thinking about how we can improve our team and our processes in some ways. And so we have these different program areas within the team, such as our training, kind of our training team. We have a team that writes all of our macros and like responses and help articles, and they're constantly thinking about like how are we wording this and can we make improvements there. Or, they're a common thing that the team needs more education on. And we also have another program currently called Specialist Success, which is just where teammates can think about how they can improve processes for each other. And that is one area that we look at as continued growth for people, because if you're interested in honing in your writing skills, or if you're interested in project management, getting some time in those programs can be beneficial, and it's a good like learning ground for like maybe trying an initiative and seeing if it succeeds or fails within our team. So that's definitely an area that we also schedule in for folks who are interested and want to spend their time doing some of that kind of work. We look for opportunities to partner them with, here's something I'm interested in professionally, here's maybe something going on within the team that you can work on. So that's just one thing that we look at, but it's a lot of listening to your own team. As we mentioned, not everybody has the same interests for growth or ideas for it. So making sure that we're using our time in our one-on-ones appropriately, and again, just getting a lot of that feedback I'm also happy to report that all of our team leads and managers currently have been promoted internally. So we've been able to continually bring people up through the organization. And we've even created 2 new roles in the last year that have been filled by people on our team. So that's been really awesome to see the growth of people who've joined.
That's really really cool to hear. That's actually something I think is really valuable that you've touched on is internal hires, like promotions, even if it's leaving your support team for another department within the company, it kind of always ends up being a win-win for everyone involved. So like even if you may lose a couple of great people from support, if they are getting promoted within your company, you're retaining that knowledge and that experience and everything in there, and you do get a lot of benefits from that. So that's a really cool to hear that you've got some like career progression going on. I also think there's kind of 2 key things that can help kind of spearhead agent development. One is having clear career paths, so having definitions of maybe from a junior role to a senior role, maybe specialist roles, management roles, having clear paths that your agents can take on their support journey to help them enter into those positions. So that's something that you can do as a support leader, like already is come up with this clear path. Give your agent something to work towards. The other thing that you kind of need to really focus on is the coaching itself. So whether it's regular conversation reviews to get that ongoing regular feedback, whether it's your one-on-ones between manager and agent, whether it's with the training team, the quality team, the ongoing development of your agents is in your hands, and there's so much you can do when it comes to coaching, so many different avenues and paths. Don't even be afraid to look at externally either. There's plenty of amazing online resources out there that can help your support teams further their development, especially if it's in a field perhaps outside of your specific area. So, for example, that example before with our support team members going to support engineers was quite a common path that our support agents could take would be going down the support engineer role. And so we would encourage them to do some online courses on SQL database queries and spend days up to weeks with the support engineers doing some job shadowing, really get their hands on and understand what that job and like what it takes to do that job. And if it's something they really want to ensure, then giving them the resources to pursue that, because anyone that's developing is going to bring more value to your company over time, and it's just a win-win.
Absolutely. And echoing on all the themes here, I think it's so important, one, to really lay out those career development opportunities really clearly, but also just a reminder for, folks cross-functionally in organizations. Sometimes people might look externally to hire, but actually your support agents are the ones that know the product inside and out, know the edge cases, and have a really informed and nuanced point of view. And so really, really great points that, you all hit on there. All right, so would love to open up the floor for questions. And I actually think a couple have already trickled in for Meg. So maybe to start us off, a question from Libby for Meg. How many quality tickets are team members responsible for scoring each week or time period used?
Yeah. So we have a looking at 5 conversations split between email and live chat and phone. So we want to make sure we're reviewing a certain amount of phone calls as well as our email and live chat. It can be kind of easier just to read than it is to listen. So that's a goal we have for them, as well as the 30 minutes per week. And that kind of helps us get to that 5% goal that we have internally. So that's been one metric that has, for the most part, worked well for us so far.
Fantastic. We actually have a few more questions for you, Meg. A question from Marilyn. I'd be really curious how that implementation went with associates, and this is discussing the Klaus implementation. Our initial model started at 80% for the top score, and there was definitely some resistance.
Yeah. So I think that's totally normal and totally natural. For us, there were definitely some people who I think it they didn't understand, and I think it's also important that like the numbers do matter to people. Like the thing you see on the screen does make a difference. And explaining we always say explaining the why behind it is kind of the best you can do to really get them to embrace different changes. Um, and it's something we will continue to evaluate, honestly, as our score system. So the initial implementation, I think a lot of people, it clicked right away. They liked it, and it was like, great, because now I can give 3 different good scores. And instead of feeling like all I can do is take points away from my peers who I think are doing a good job. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of them have embraced it and seeing how they can again shout out some of those above and beyond moments and like give people the kudos they deserve. So it also was an idea sparked by one of our teammates to try out the scoring that way. So I think also knowing it kind of came from some good thinking within that helped people to embrace what we were trying to do, and bring them along with it. So yeah, I'd say we encountered maybe some similar conversations that you had, but we really work with those people to try and see if they can understand what it is we're going for and be a part of it with us.
Another question for you, Meg, just putting you in the hot seat here. How has the peer review process worked for your team? And this is from Kaylin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there has been so much value that's come out of it. And like, it's kind of scary to do with your team to kind of, it can put people maybe in potentially uncomfortable situations with each other. We actually did just recently send out a survey to our whole team with a lot of questions on their thoughts on the value that they get out of it, their understanding, how comfortable they feel doing different things, and have received a whole range of feedback that we're still working through, which is great. I honestly am like, we should be doing this every year and just like have this be our benchmark survey that we do, because as we mentioned, we do dedicate a lot of time to it. And a lot of the team really understands the value, and they get things out of it, right? Like they get tips and tricks, they see things, they like being able to like shout someone out and give them a good review, or they like being able to say, hey, like you did a good job, but you know maybe next time you could think about doing it this way, because it allows them to demonstrate their own knowledge of our process. There are some people who I think still do feel uncomfortable maybe giving maybe negative feedback to each other, and a lot of it is about not again getting people to understand it's not about like telling someone that did something wrong or like making them feel bad about it. It's about like making sure just we can fix it and move on, or we can say, you know what, I do this all the time also, maybe we need to change our process, like maybe this isn't working for any of us on the team and we need to talk about it because it's hard. So yeah, so that'd be one thing. If you're curious on peer QA or setting it up with your team, I think you should definitely try it. If you are doing it and you're not sure how it's going, ask your team and find ways to get their feedback.
Fantastic. I think that we are approaching time. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. And if you would like to reach out to Meg to learn more about her journey, we have her email address here, as well as visit Wild Alaskan Company's website. We'll be sending out all of these materials to continue the conversation with Klaus, as well as assembled in a follow-up email with the recording attached as well. But thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, and really excited to continue many more of these.